At a pivotal moment in history, when the Roman Republic teetered on the brink, emerged the figure of Publius Cornelius Scipio, whose name is forever etched into the annals of history. Scipio, dubbed Africanus in honor of his triumphant victories, became Rome's savior from impending doom, yet paid an exorbitant price for his outstanding contribution. It was he who managed to break the power of Hannibal Barca, the legendary Carthaginian general whose victories struck terror across the entire Apennine Peninsula and inflicted devastating blows to Roman pride. Scipio prevailed over Hannibal not only through military prowess, but also thanks to his sharp intellect, unwavering composure, and strategic genius. However, Scipio's triumph was not without consequence. The Roman political arena, as is well known, rarely tolerates the prolonged brilliance of a single star, and Scipio's fame aroused envy and ill will from the Senate. Fearing his growing influence and popularity, the Senate transformed recognition of his merits into suspicion and gratitude into betrayal. Scipio's story is not merely a tale of an invincible commander. It is an account of a young aristocrat who bravely defied fate, rekindled national pride, and restored hope in moments of despair. It is also a portrait of a republic which, unable to bear the greatness of its hero, ultimately exiled him. This is the tragic narrative of the rise, triumph, and bitter banishment of Scipio Africanus, whose life became a symbol of both greatness and ingratitude. The 2nd of August, 216 BC, marked a dark day in the annals of the Roman Republic. On that fateful day, on the plains of Cannae in southern Italy, Hannibal Barca, a brilliant strategist, executed a military maneuver that has forever been enshrined in history textbooks as a model of tactical mastery. Leading an army significantly outnumbered by the Roman legions, he managed to encircle them and inflict a merciless slaughter. Over 50,000 Roman warriors fell on the battlefield, plunging Rome into a state of profound shock and paralysis. The defeat was so crushing that many Romans genuinely believed the end of their great power was imminent. Yet it was precisely at this tragic moment, when fear, chaos, and despair gripped Rome, that an extraordinary personality emerged on the political stage: Publius Cornelius Scipio. A young man barely 20 years old, without high rank or formal authority, he possessed a rare gift, the leadership qualities so desperately lacking among the survivors of the Cannae disaster. When demoralized soldiers, stunned by the scale of the massacre, began to murmur about surrender and ceasing resistance, Scipio, without losing a second, stormed into their assembly. With a drawn sword in hand, he swore an oath before the gods, full of determination and an unshakable belief in Rome's future. "By Jupiter, I shall never betray Rome, and with this sword I shall punish anyone who dares to take such a shameful step." This act was not merely a fearsome threat, it was a call to awaken national consciousness, a spark of hope ignited in the darkest night of Roman history. And although Scipio was but a young patrician, it was at this fateful moment that the great commander, the future legend of Rome, was born within him. For, as is well known, true leaders are forged not in the hothouse conditions of comfort and prosperity, but in the harsh fire of trials and adversity. In those harsh times, whilst Rome desperately resisted the onslaught of Carthaginian legions, far from the Apennine Peninsula, another fateful battle unfolded in the disputed territories of the Iberian Peninsula. There, Roman generals, Scipio's father and uncle, had for many months heroically attempted to contain the relentless Carthaginian war machine, intercept supply routes, and maintain the loyalty of their few allies. But fate had a tragic end in store for them. The Scipio brothers fell victim to the betrayal of the Celtiberians, local allies they had naively trusted, and perished in a bloody battle, overwhelmed by superior Carthaginian forces led by Hasdrubal Barca. This defeat was a crushing blow for Rome. For the young Scipio, this news was a profound shock. He had lost not only his father and uncle on one tragic day, but also the hope for a future he had not yet had a chance to embrace. Rome was paralyzed by fear and despair. No one dared to take command in this cursed campaign. Senators were indecisive, and battle-hardened veterans remained silent. This mission seemed a suicidal venture. And then Scipio, barely 25 years old, appeared before the Senate. Not as a reckless youth, but as a mature man aware of his great purpose, lacking command experience, he audaciously asked to be entrusted with leading the remnants of the Roman army in Hispania. Given the general silence and absence of volunteers, the Senate had no choice but to place this heavy burden upon him. Scipio departed for Hispania as proconsul, leading a small and demoralized army. He had no resounding victories, no military glory, nor tempting promises, only an unshakable will to avenge the death of his family, restore Rome's tarnished honor, and halt Carthage's triumphant march. He understood he was alone in his struggle, but also knew that, should he succeed, it would be not merely a military triumph, but the dawn of a glorious new era for Rome. New Carthage was far more than just a geographical point. This brilliant city, located in the Spanish part of Carthage, served as a key naval center, an administrative hub, an arsenal of weapons, a repository of wealth, and an embodiment of power. Its capture represented not only a tactical victory, but also a powerful psychological blow to the enemy. Attempting to take such a fortified stronghold with an inexperienced army seemed an act of desperate madness. However, Scipio, possessing strategic insight, saw the situation differently. He did not seek an exhausting war or direct clashes with the three Carthaginian armies deployed in the region. His plan was ahead of current events, aiming to strike where the enemy least expected it, swiftly and precisely. Thanks to confidential information received from sailors of the allied city of Tarraco, Scipio learned of New Carthage's vulnerability. The city, surrounded by sea on three sides, had a weak point, a northern lagoon that, at low tide, exposed a direct approach to its walls. This circumstance required impeccable coordination. On the day of the assault, when the defenders' main forces were concentrated on repelling attacks from land and sea, Scipio ordered a portion of his troops to cross the lagoon at low tide. Roman soldiers, traversing the muddy bottom, managed to scale the inner fortifications from the least protected flank. What seemed impossible became a reality in just a few hours. New Carthage fell to the Roman army. In some instances, glittering metals, such as polished bronze and occasionally even silver, were used to craft the masks. Under the sun's rays, they gleamed almost blindingly, bestowing an otherworldly appearance upon the warrior. The enemy felt they were confronting not ordinary men, but wrathful deities descended from the heavens. Furthermore, the masks could reflect the aesthetic ideals of the era, serene faces with perfect features, reminiscent of classical Greco-Roman beauty. Consequently, the warrior not only inspired terror, but also embodied the ideal Roman, demonstrating cultural and military superiority. For the Roman warriors themselves, wearing such a mask also had a profound psychological impact. Concealing one's face signified the adoption of a new role, a transformation into a different kind of warrior, a shedding of fear, and a metamorphosis into a devoted servant of the empire. It was as if the metal granted them new skin, a new essence. Thus, the metallic face was not merely an adornment. It served as a bridge between the human and the divine, between the earthly and the symbolic. This explains why, despite practical limitations, such masks were highly valued and used where the demonstration of power held greater significance than its direct application. To delve deeper into the essence of masked helmets, it is crucial to consider their role within the historical context, where the military traditions of ancient Rome come to the fore. It is important to note that not all these helmets were intended for use in actual combat. Many served for events known as hippica gymnasia, cavalry exercises that were not only training sessions, but also captivating spectacles. Imagine the scene, a vast field where dozens of Roman horsemen, clad in gleaming armor, demonstrate their skill. Their faces are hidden behind metallic masks with frozen, impassive expressions. In the eyes of the spectators, these warriors transformed into mythical heroes, capable of incredible maneuvers on horseback. The helmets, with their cold and flawless features, enveloped the riders in an aura of mystery and grandeur. These were no longer mere men, but rather theatrical characters embodying the might and majesty of Rome at its highest expression. Every clash of spears, every swift cavalry charge served simultaneously as training and an act of power projection. The primary objective of these displays was clear: to make an indelible impression on allies, sow fear in the hearts of enemies, and instill in the Romans themselves a sense of pride and belonging to the most disciplined and celebrated army in the world. Some historians believe that these helmets were an integral part of a meticulously designed scenography, where the aesthetic component played no less important a role than tactical skills. The mask, by concealing the warrior's true emotions, allowed him to appear as a superhuman being, immune to fear and doubt. Thus, masked helmets served not only a practical protective function, but were also an important element of the symbolic theater of war, whose power was comparable to the strength of a legionary's sword or spear. Roman mask helmets were not only an attribute of thrilling gladiatorial contests, but also a vivid demonstration of the technological progress achieved by the Roman Empire. The production of these helmets was a complex task requiring high levels of craftsmanship. Each mask was meticulously forged from metal, striving to reproduce human features, hairstyles, and even an idealized facial expression with surgical precision. Bronze and iron were primarily used, while some examples were covered with a thin layer of silver to gleam dazzlingly under the sun's rays. Such a high level of detail attests to outstanding achievements in metallurgy and an attention to detail that went beyond simple military necessities. It was true art placed at the service of war. At the same time, these masks also had obvious drawbacks. Breathing in them was difficult, heat quickly accumulated, and vision was restricted by narrow eye slits. A soldier forced to fight in such a mask for several hours risked fatigue and even disorientation. For this reason, many experts agree that most of these helmets were used more for ceremonial purposes. parades, or training, rather than in actual combat. They served more as a symbolic expression of strength and power than as a practical tool for close-quarters fighting. The Roman Empire understood that military triumphs were forged not only by the steel of blades, but also by the power of intellect. Displaying to the enemy an army whose ranks stood immobile, whose warriors appeared almost celestial, could inflict a blow no less potent than a swift cavalry charge. Mask helmets serve as a prime example of how Rome skillfully combined technological achievement, psychological impact, and artistic mastery in a single object, relentlessly striving to maintain its dominance in the known world. However, beyond their obvious practical utility, these helmets carried a profound symbolic meaning imbued with religious beliefs and myths. In the Roman worldview, war was not merely a physical clash, but a sacred ritual. Every battle was meant to curry favor with the gods, and warriors, by concealing their faces under metallic masks, seemed to detach themselves from their human nature, transforming into messengers of higher powers. Some masks featured idealized traits, youthful, symmetrical, almost perfect. They evoked the unearthly beauty of the Olympian gods. In other cases, elements borrowed from animals or fantastic creatures were added, creating associations with protective spirits or heroes of ancient myths. In the era of the great Roman Empire, as its legions spread their influence across the known world, masked warriors instilled terror and awe in conquered peoples. Imagine the astonishment and fear of those who first saw Roman soldiers whose faces were hidden beneath metallic visages, transforming them into living statues. This sight was not merely terrifying, it conveyed a powerful message. Rome was no ordinary adversary, but a force under the protection of the gods. It is known that in initiation rituals, mask helmets played a role in symbolic transition. A warrior, by donning a mask, renounced their past life and embraced a new identity, that of a Roman soldier ready to give their life for the empire and its gods. The mask served as a constant reminder that the warrior's life was dedicated to a great mission. It became a bridge between the human world and the divine, between mortal flesh and the eternal glory of Rome. However, not all mask helmets were alike, and not every warrior had access to them. These objects reflected the military and social hierarchy of the empire. High-ranking officers typically wore the most intricately decorated helmets. Their masks featured fine craftsmanship, often with silver or gold inlays, which underscored their privileged position and commanded respect among both their own ranks and their enemies. Thus, a mask helmet served not only as protection, but also as a symbol of power and high status. During the Roman Empire, masked helmets were an integral part of military equipment, but their use and significance varied depending on the warrior's status and tasks. Regular legionaries, who formed the backbone of the Roman army, rarely wore full masks. Their helmets were typically simple in construction and provided only partial facial protection. The main criterion for their creation was functionality, not aesthetic appeal or the display of individuality. Nevertheless, during ceremonial parades or special exercises, some legionaries might use simplified masks, symbolizing the unity and might of the Roman army. In contrast to the infantry, cavalry mask helmets were true works of art. They were specifically created for participation in tournaments, military games, and display performances. These helmets were striking in their beauty and complexity of execution. In such cases, the mask became a kind of theatrical prop, transforming warriors into actors embodying the grandeur and invincibility of Rome. The individual identity of the soldier receded into the background, giving way to the image of a mighty empire. It is noteworthy that the design of the helmets could be adapted to the ethnic characteristics of auxiliary troops, recruited from various corners of the empire. Some masks reflected the distinctive features of these cultures, demonstrating the diversity of the Roman army and Rome's ability to integrate and subjugate different peoples. Thus, each mask helmet became a carrier of information not only about its wearer, but also about their role in the vast military machine of the empire. Archaeological discoveries allow us to glimpse into the world of Roman mask helmets, revealing not only objects but also aspects of life and military symbolism in ancient Rome. Among the most famous finds is the Ribchester helmet, unearthed in England. This bronze cavalry helmet with a full face mask was likely used for ceremonial purposes and parades. The level of detail is astonishing. Decorative reliefs depicting mythological scenes and warriors transform it into a work of art rather than merely a piece of combat gear. Another outstanding find is the Crosby Garrett helmet, accidentally discovered in 2010, also in England. Its bronze mask, with almost flawless facial features and wavy hair, appears like an idealized portrait. After meticulous restoration, the helmet has become one of the most impressive relics of Roman cavalry, though its use was most likely ceremonial rather than combative. In the Netherlands, the Nijmegen helmet was found, equipped with a removable mask. This design allowed for a combination of practical use in battle and ceremonial use in parades, demonstrating the Roman ability to blend functionality with spectacle. Also worth mentioning is the Weiler helmet in Germany, which is simpler in design compared to other examples. Nevertheless, its construction indicates that it was part of cavalry equipment for training and military tournaments. Each of these finds reminds us that helmets were not just metallic objects, but symbols of an empire that sought to impress, intimidate, and inspire awe, even beyond the battlefield. In an era of military confrontations, Roman helmets adorned with masks represented something more than mere protective elements or luxury items. Their true power lay in the potent psychological impact they exerted on both the enemy and the warriors themselves. Imagine the scene on the battlefield, ranks of horsemen advancing, each concealed behind an impassive metallic visage, expressing no emotion, merely reflecting the dazzling sunlight. To the enemy, accustomed to seeing human feelings and fears in the faces of their opponents, this army seemed a supernatural force, almost divine beings descended from the heavens. The mask, concealing the individuality of the Roman warrior, transformed him into an embodiment of terror, a symbol of insurmountable might against which courage alone was insufficient. However, the helmet's impact was not limited to its external effect. It also profoundly influenced the soldier themselves. By completely covering the face, the helmet erased personal features and intensified the feeling of belonging to something great, to a mighty empire, an invincible legion, the very destiny of Rome. The warrior ceased to feel like an ordinary human, transforming into a ruthless fighting machine, a messenger of imperial will. The anonymity granted by the mask allowed him to overcome personal fear and assume an almost theatrical role. On the battlefield, a Roman ceased to be merely Marcus or Lucius. He became the embodiment of Mars himself, the formidable god of war. This psychological transformation, whilst intangible, often proved to be a decisive factor in battle. Opponents fought not only against ordinary soldiers, but also against a powerful image of authority, a terrifying symbol. For in war, as is well known, the spirit is often conquered before the body. The Romans understood this perfectly and employed visual strategy as a weapon, just as effective as spears and sharp swords. In historical scholarship, there has long been debate regarding the functional purpose of the masked helmets worn by Roman warriors. The question has been whether they were exclusively ceremonial attributes intended for parades and demonstrations, or if they also found application directly on a battlefield. At first glance, the use of such helmets in actual combat conditions seems questionable. Limited visibility, poor ventilation, and significant weight created serious discomfort for soldiers who required maximum mobility, clear vision, and unrestricted breathing. For this reason, many researchers are inclined to believe that masked helmets were primarily used during military tournaments and exhibition displays, such as the Hippica Gymnasia, where Roman cavalry showcased their prowess to the public. In these events, the helmet served as a symbol of discipline, wealth, and high status, emphasizing the power and grandeur of the Roman Empire not only in warfare, but also in the visual representation of authority. However, the possibility of these helmets being used in actual combat cannot be entirely ruled out. Historical evidence and archaeological finds suggest that some lighter, more simplified models might have been employed in real battles, particularly by officers and elite warriors. In such instances, their function would have been more psychological, to intimidate the enemy during the initial encounter. Thus, masked helmets were not merely protective gear, but a powerful visual tool, conveying a message of superiority and intended for those holding a special position within the Roman army. The enigma surrounding the masked helmets of Roman legionaries lies in the exceptional craftsmanship of their manufacture. These were not merely mass-produced iron items intended for rank-and-file soldiers. On the contrary, each helmet was a true work of metallic art, astonishing even modern researchers with its intricate precision. Many of these helmets were crafted from bronze or iron, covered with a delicate layer of silver, which gave them an almost ethereal radiance in the sunlight. This gleam not only dazzled enemies, but also unequivocally proclaimed the wearer's high status and their belonging to the Roman army's elite. The creation of such helmets was entrusted to the empire's finest artisans, presumably working in specialized workshops located in regions renowned for their metallurgical traditions, such as Pannonia, Dacia, or even in the central workshops of Rome itself. Each piece was unique, created through painstaking labor. The metal was shaped by hammer blows, meticulously polished, and often adorned with intricately crafted reliefs depicting gods, heroes, or formidable military symbols. The perfect fit of these masks is particularly admirable. They were not standard, impersonal items. Each mask was meticulously shaped to perfectly conform to the face of the specific soldier who was to wear it. Some examples apparently even conveyed individual facial features, leading scholars to speculate that in certain cases, these might have been idealized portraits of their wearers. Behind every masked helmet lay months of intense work, dozens of skilled hands, and carefully guarded secrets of craftsmanship, the ability to transform crude metal into an enduring likeness of a face. Thus, each helmet was not merely a protective piece of equipment, but a symbol of identity, authority, and high art. Although the relentless passage of time has consumed many masked helmets, individual specimens, like phoenixes from the ashes, have survived to this day, taking pride of place in museum collections worldwide. These artifacts, true archaeological treasures, allow us to connect with the distant past. Of particular note is the Ribchester helmet, discovered in England. Found near the ruins of a Roman fort, it stands as one of the best preserved examples. The helmet's metal mask, polished to a mirror-like sheen, attests to the supreme skill of ancient craftsmen and their desire to make an unforgettable impression on their contemporaries. Equally fascinating is the Nijmegen helmet, unearthed in the Netherlands. Its intricate decorative ornamentation suggests that this item was used not only for military purposes, but also in ceremonial rituals. It was likely intended for parades and displays where power and propaganda merged. In Germany, the Augst helmet was discovered, preserving delicate details on its cheeks, which lend the mask an almost sinister realism. Each such find not only confirms the existence of masked helmets, but also reveals the diversity of their application and attests to the vastness of the Roman Empire. These helmets, like loyal companions of the legions, traveled across the provinces, leaving their mark on history. And today, gazing at them through museum displays, we experience the same mixed feeling of admiration and awe that our ancestors did almost 2 millennia ago. This sensation reminds us that for ancient Rome, warfare was not merely a means to an end, but also a captivating spectacle. Beyond the gleaming metallic surface of these masks lay not only a tactical design, but also a profound spiritual meaning. In the Roman worldview, donning a mask meant more than just concealing one's face. It was a genuine transformation. The warrior ceased to be an individual, becoming a symbol, an embodiment of Rome's might, almost a messenger of the gods. Some researchers suggest that these masks were prefigured by religious rites where individuality dissolved to embody a deity or a protective spirit. Thus, a warrior clad in a mask was perceived not as a mere mortal, but as a consecrated servant of the cult of war. It is also presumed that these masks served to establish a connection with ancestral traditions. In Roman culture, funerary portraits played a significant role. Many of these helmet masks resembled idealized marble depictions of faces. This created the impression that the army marched accompanied by the spirits of departed ancestors, reinforcing the idea that Rome waged war not alone, but under the guidance of a sacred heritage. Ultimately, an object that at first glance appears to be a simple metal component transforms into a bridge between the world of mortals and gods, a tool uniting faith, tradition, and political power, reminding us that religion and warfare have always been inextricably linked. Even today, Roman masks, having endured through the ages, continue to stir the imaginations of contemporaries. Their formidable appearance has served as inspiration for cinema, the gaming industry, and historical novels, where Roman legionaries are depicted as merciless, almost supernatural warriors. The metallic face, devoid of all expression, continues to instill awe, a sense of power and mystery, just as it did in ancient times. In the archaeological world, the discovery of each new mask is a sensation. Major museums worldwide, such as those in London, Cologne, and Amsterdam, consider it an honor to exhibit these artifacts, drawing crowds of visitors eager to see a fragment of a once invincible empire firsthand. Scholars meticulously analyze the minutest casting details, preserve traces of pigments indicating that some masks were painted, and even signs of repair, suggesting these items were used not only as adornments, but also in training skirmishes or ritual ceremonies. Modern culture has also embraced this fascination. In historical reenactments, groups of enthusiasts create precise replicas of the masks to recreate parades and battles from the Roman Empire. In contemporary art, sculptors and designers reinterpret their form, seeing in it a symbol of strength and anonymity. The majestic legacy of Roman masks extends far beyond archaeological excavations, continuing to live on in humanity's collective memory. These artifacts serve as a constant reminder that the Roman Empire left behind not only enduring roads and magnificent cities, but also powerful visual myths that still evoke awe and admiration today. Roman masks are not merely soulless metal objects. They represent a mirror of an entire era when military actions became a kind of theater, strict discipline intertwined with primal fear, and the ruling empire perfectly understood that a skillfully crafted image could possess no less power than a deadly sword. Contemplating these masks today, we see not just the faceless visage of a Roman warrior, but a vivid reflection of an entire civilization that possessed a unique ability to leave an indelible mark on every detail of its culture. They serve as a reminder that political power is maintained not only by brute physical force, but also by artfully created symbols capable of instilling dread, commanding profound respect, and forging captivating legends. The Roman Empire succumbed to the relentless march of time, yet its rich legacy continues to live on and inspire. And these cold, impassive masks continue to engage in a silent dialogue with us, using a universal language that transcends centuries to convey a simple yet profound truth. True dominion lies in the power of the mind.